business meeting. It is 6 p.m. on January 29th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The clerk will take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Present.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councilmember Rathmel. Present. Councilmember Matavetsky.
Present.
Councilmember Dundon is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Present.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to reports from committees and approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second. Okay, motion by Councilmember Middleton, second by Councilmember Kavanaugh. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Are there any reports from committee?
I'm just pulling
ahead.
up the calendar here.
BLDC was canceled this month, so that's fine.
Okay,
There's there's an MPA meeting on Monday at 1 o'clock. So just regarding it's with the health department regarding the fluoride situation. So that is Monday at 1 o'clock and it's downstairs.
thank you.
Traffic board is February 13th at 9:15 a.m. We will be, as far as I know, the agenda hasn't been posted yet, but I believe based on last month's meeting that we will be discussing the Leroy study on pedestrian traffic safety study. So if you are interested in that, if you have questions, either pass those questions to me or come to the 9:15 a.m. meeting.
What was the date again?
February 13th.
13?
Okay, we can move on to appointments for CDAC. There's currently, we need to fill vacancies in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th.
No. I'm good in my district.
Do you need to
No,
reappoint?
it's the same person.
Okay,
So it's the same.
Same for the 6th. The Marilyn Austin will continue to represent the 6th on CDAC.
Yeah, so. Yeah, yes, Eileen Hughes, she's still gonna represent the 2nd district.
so you're going to reappoint
Yes.
Eileen Hughes to be the
Correct.
CDAC representative for District 2.
Correct.
Can we do that?
Just to clarify, Marilyn for the 6th is a continuation, not a reappointment.
Thank you. And I'm still looking for someone to appoint to District 4 or the District 4 representative for CDAC. So that committee is an advisory committee that helps with the allocation for HUD funds that come to the city. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me. I'd appreciate that. Now we can move on to our appointments to the Human Rights Commission. We appoint Dr. Denise Ewell, John Brunza, Hussein Adams, and Chris Scott to the Human Rights Commission.
Can we give a little applaud?
Yeah.
I feel like we give that a moment.
Looking forward to all that they're going to do on the Human Rights Commission. So move on to setting of the public hearings. City of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 25-23. This is an ordinance authorizing the bond. This public hearing will take place at 6 p.m. during the February 12th, 2025 regular City Council business meeting in City Council chambers, 38 Hawley Street, Binghamton, New York. Residents wishing to participate in public hearing may do so electronically by emailing their comments by 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov or in person at the meeting. We don't have any public hearings tonight. So now we can move on to our public comment section. Residents wishing to submit public comment may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov or in person during the meeting. So if anybody wants to make a comment right now, you can come down. You have 5 minutes to speak and just please state your full name and whether you work live or work in the city of Binghamton. And if not speaking, if this row of chairs is great for getting on deck, so that we can move through at a decent pace. So does anybody want to come down for public comment? Thank you.
Yes. It has to be green. Green, press it and it'll. Green. You press it one time, it should turn on.
Thank you very much, Kenya.
No problem.
I'll keep it very brief. I brought in the list of executive orders that almost
Could you,
took
could you
effect.
state your name for the record, please?
Elaine,
Thank-
Elaine. The last name is Bonilla, Bonilla. I'm here about the executive orders that almost went through, but a judge stopped it.
Thank you.
First one, ICE going into public schools, arresting all school faculty and all minor children because of Trump's executive order. Second one, ICE going into all churches because Trump executive order that all are illegals. Now, ICE and the military warned ahead of time before Trump got sworn in by Pentagon. There's going to be serious ramifications if they start attacking our U.S. citizens. You are not allowed to attack our U.S. citizens. They ride the buses to and from school. They are public because they got proof through birth certificate and social security card in order to attend a public school. The workers have birth certificate and social security proof that they can work with the children, both on buses and at those schools. So he broke law right there, but so did ICE. ICE knows better, and so does our military. The next one is ICE going into churches because Trump's execution order to deport as many people as possible. Now, a U.S. citizen did get deported to Colombia. I found out through the internet, and the Colombia government killed that U.S. citizen. So the blood is now on ICE hands and Trump and Vance's hands. And executive order to ban all housing for those who need it. That's going against humanitarian rights right there. That's going against babies and minors and the parents and elderly and disabled. Executive order to ban all housing for those who need it. Cannot do that. Executive order to end FEMA and stop aid to slow down the crisis. That's breaking the law right there because we're not taking care of the U.S. citizens. Executive order to end WHO or World Health Organization. He cannot do that either. Trump fired inspector generals and refused to take accountability for it. On a federal level, executive order to end all cancer research. That's breaking the law too. Executive order to end all health care. That is breaking the law. Many insurrectionists admitted they attacked our capital willingly and will attack our capital again. So they didn't learn their lesson. Executive order to end birthright citizenship. I look at it this way. If you're born in any district in the United States, you're born in that country, you are a U.S. citizen. Or if you're born in Panama, you are a citizen of Panama. It's just the way it is if you're born in that country. Executive order to end DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. He almost got away with that, but he didn't. A federal judge went down, got after him. That's the only reason why they rescinded all those executive orders. But that doesn't mean he won't try that again. And that's why we got to come up with solutions on city council level so he can't do it to the cities of New York. We have to get each city council involved in each one of the cities to protect public schools and churches. That we can do. And SS we can protect. And Social Security we can protect on city level. But you guys have to get it passed through the judge, the city judge. Then once you get it passed through the city judge, you get it passed through county, and then a county judge, and then state judges. And then if he even thinks about going to any one of the states where city council is protecting human rights, can get impeached.
You have a
because we
little
have
over a
that
minute
much
left.
Power, and we got the federal government to protect us more then.
You have just over a minute. Okay, you're good. Thanks.
What?
Just letting you know you had a little over a minute left in your speaking time.
All right. And thank you for hearing me speak, because I feel like if I don't make my voice heard, and if you guys aren't given transparency, how are you going to know what you're up against? You have to know from the public what you're up against.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Come on.
Good evening. Got some shy crowd members today. I thought you were going to close hearing just like that.
You want to state your
All
name?
Trump
whether
like.
you
Oh yeah,
state your
sorry.
name.
My name is Tariq Abdelazam. I resident and Councilwoman Rathmel is my wonderful representative. Couple of things I wanted to just be that what is that, wet blanket on the fire? Guy who ruins the party regarding the town and country. From state to local representatives, some of you were there, celebrating that this project is finally going to be renovated. 260 low-income units over on the north side. It is a great victory, right? The property and more so the people are in desperate need of those investments. But it's really important just to kind of step back and look at what an absolute disaster this was, starting with Mayor Rich David. Announced in 2021, I believe it was, that with new owners, immediately allocated $3 million of our pandemic recovery to those owners. They had a really bad history with the state and affordable housing programs, but it didn't matter to Rich David. He was looking to take a seat up at the New York State Senate's office, so he wanted every possible media hit he could get. And they promised that this was going to happen, a $38 million project. In those 3 years, the owners were extremely negligent to dealing with maintenance needs. I think about 100 different units were either emptied by eviction or neglect because of serious health and safety issues. If you went over to Town and Country, I was shocked the number of plywood on the windows. I mean, literally let this just fall into complete disrepair. So the state basically forced a sale, strong-armed a sale to a more reputable developer. And it's good that we now have this person as a partner. But the most disgusting thing is that the owners that were negligent, neglectful, harmed those residents, they bought that property for $8 million in 2021. They sold it for 14.5 million 3 years later, when we basically kicked them out with public dollars. We paid a slumlord $6 million profit to basically harm our neighborhood for 3 years. It's disgusting. And that is complete negligence on this administration and the inefficiency and lack of vision, imagination when it comes to appropriate code enforcement policies. This project also, it was funny, is in a Press and Sun Bulletin article in 2019, it was a $38 million project. In September 2024, in another media article, it was a $46 million project. 2 months later, it was a $60 million project. And then at the big announcement, it was announced as a $96 million project. $71 million of state funds, our tax dollars, $3 million of pandemic recovery funds, our dollars, 14.5 million in IDA tax exemptions, about 11 million in property tax exemptions. Like, I think we could do this better than the private market. I really do. And there was a proposal years back to turn that into a condominium, to allow low-income homeowners to buy their units for very affordable rates and build wealth.
You have 1 minute left.
We could have done that for far less than what we've expended. And for the millions that we handed to a slumlord because the city doesn't care about poor tenants. It's just disgusting. I hope that you all continue to address this, move forward with an ambitious and a just comprehensive housing policy. And I'll state again that that starts with a citywide reassessment. And just to share another one, the city, 50 Main Street is right on the corner, Main and Oak. It's assessed at 160,000. It sold last July for 1.725 million. I don't think they're paying the appropriate property taxes. I just went to Broome County and paid mine, and all of us are paying taxes on a fraudulent city property tax system. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come down for public comment?
Hello, can you hear me? My name is John Ferrara. I live in Binghamton. And I am here today to urge City Council to pass good cause eviction without delay. It's a law that will clearly and demonstrably help thousands of Binghamton residents, and it's long overdue. I'd like to draw your attention to the LA fires that began 3 weeks ago. In response to the incalculable damage and suffering that those fires caused, landlords raised rent by over 200%. It is said that climate change will manifest as a series of disasters viewed through phones with footage that gets closer and closer to us until you're the one filming it. It's a poignant and true statement, one that we must take incredibly seriously. We are currently just one tragic disaster away from a humanitarian crisis right where we live. It's a crisis that will destroy the lives of your constituents. And so I ask you, will you stand with us, or will you continue to allow landlords to grow rich from our labor? I'd also like to point out that this city council, made up, I believe now entirely of Democrats, should pay attention to the trends in national politics. Right now in the working class, there is a massive rightward shift, driven almost entirely by the failures of the Democratic Party to push forward bold reforms that truly and systemically help the working class. So, reversing this trend begins on the local level. If you don't get support here, you will never get support on the state level or on the federal level, and we will continue to see the terrible, terrible trends that we have now seen. That's all. Thank you for hearing me, and I'd also like to thank Nate Hotchkiss for being a constant and devout champion of the working class. I hope you all follow his lead.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come down for public comment? Please. I'd really appreciate if those chairs get used just to help us transition between speakers. Thank you.
Good evening. As you can see, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted for a lot of reasons.
Can we get you to state your name for the record?
Salka.
Thank you.
Valerio. Sorry, I'm like getting out of being sick. So, I did write something and it's, my name is Salka and I'm here to urge you to pass good cause because tenants in Binghamton cannot wait any longer. Every delay puts more family at risk of losing their homes through no fault of their own. Families have done everything right, paid their rent, maintained their homes, contribute to the neighborhoods, yet without protections, they can be evicted or face unreasonable rent hikes that forces them out. This is not stability, it's not justice. We are in the middle of the housing crisis. Rents are rising faster than the wages, and tenants, many of who are working class families, seniors, and students, are being priced out or unfairly displaced. There's people that I know that have to actually find places outside of Binghamton because they can't find nothing affordable here any longer. And they're actually moving to back to New York City to go underneath their shelter system because we actually don't have quality family shelter system for them to use. Without this law, landlords could remove tenants without cause, even if they have paid rent on time and have been good neighbors. That is not fair and is not how we build a strong, thriving community. This law is not about punishing landlords. It's about balance. It ensures responsible landlords can still manage their properties while preventing unfair and retaliatory evictions. It does not stop evictions from non-payment or serious lease violations. Instead, it protects tenants that's being displaced unfairly and provides stability for our community. The people of Binghamton deserve the same protections that tenants in New York City's already have, and also in Rochester and other places that have already passed good cause. Good cause now, not later, not after another delay, but today. Council members, you were elected to serve the people of this city. The people have spoken. The community has shown up time and time again asking for this. Do not let them down. Do not let another family lose their home because of inaction. Pass good cause now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come up for public comment?
You better standing. I'm Thomas Pollock. I'm associate.
Do-
Thank you. I'm Thomas Pollock. I'm associate broker. I became an associate broker in 1979. I was a sales associate for Saul Real Estate. I was an associate real estate broker with Farrell Realtors, Better Homes and Gardens. And I've been owner and principal broker of Orion Realty of Binghamton since 1986. I've been in the continuous practice of residential and commercial real estate sales, buyer and seller representation, valuation, marketing, property management, residential and commercial rentals since 1977. I'm a member of the Greater Binghamton Association of Realtors and a member and immediate past president of the Southern Tier chapter of the New York State Commercial Association of Realtors. I've represented buyers, sellers, tenants, owners, residential, multifamily, small and large commercial buildings, acreage, and open acreage. I established and managed a new home construction division within Orion Realty from 1997 to 2003 and conducted and oversaw sales, design, construction management of 9 new homes. I've owned and operated 37 Glenwood Avenue since 1979. This is a mixed-use building containing my office and 6 other apartments. Recently, the city of Binghamton announced that buildings are to be demolished. I'm here to state that the demolition of these buildings represents a failure. Represents a failure on many fronts. First and foremost, this is a failure to the residents of the city who will lose access to housing units. Second, it's a failure to taxpayers who ultimately have to come up with the funds to pay the cost of demolition. Third, it's a failure to the remaining owners who do maintain their properties and will have to absorb the portion of the future tax levy not being paid when the improvement portion of the assessments of the demolished buildings is gone. Fourth, this is a failure on the part of city administration and city council to enact regulations to prevent the degradation of condition of the housing stock in the city. This is a responsibility of the city. Every time a building is torn down, it's a city failure. I was on the planning board of the city for 7 years. And I saw people trying to do good, to build residential structures, to build housing units, And the city basically lets them down. When an owner has a problem, they go to the court, court throws them out, you've got no basis. The enacting of good cause legislation regulations in the city will remove what is the only remaining tool owners of rental units have to protect their property. Rental income is the means to pay for the taxes, insurance, mortgage, repairs, maintenance, and cost of property upgrades. It is not to the benefit of owners to evict tenants who pay their rent, take care of their residents, and who are considerate of their neighbors. Restricting the ability of owners to meet the responsibility to provide clean, safe housing by removing the only recourse an owner has to protect residents and still provide the resources necessary to continue to provide housing for those who need to rent.
You have about 1 minute left.
I strongly oppose the imposition of what's called good cause eviction, as it will ultimately hurt the city and the residents and the property owners who the city government is obligated to protect. The job of government, the first job of government, is to protect its citizens. All of them, people that are renting, people who own, it's the city's responsibility, and you're not doing it. Every time a building's torn down, you fail. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Patterson. I live at 184 Helen Street in Binghamton. I just want to bring a report that I've kind of put in my mind out to you all. Last week, there was the HUD announced that was on a Wednesday, that was the day for National Homeless Count. And I've done this several years. This year was eye-awakening. I'm not going into details. However, what I will say is I found spots in this city where I didn't find anybody out there homeless under bridges and so forth and so on. There were homeless, but not there. But one place that was a south end of Tompkins Street Bridge, you could see where the homeless had been. Of course, when it's 15 degrees, they're going to find a place to get inside if they can. But what was a shocking is probably 35 to 50 needles on the ground. Now, I feel that's the responsibility of the city to go in there and clean that up. Because if they stay there and we get springtime and kids want to go down there and go fishing, they're going to find those things. I think it's a very, very dangerous situation. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that some of these homeless places, we should be monitoring. People are on drugs. That's not my concern. My concern is the debris they leave behind, which is dangerous stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment?
Hi, my name is Jaren. I'm a Binghamton resident. First, I would like to start off and say that as a Binghamton resident, as a renter as well, I have great landlords. I'm a single family home. It's a 2-bedroom house. I could possibly make it 3 bedrooms. And I pay $850 a month for that on the south side of Binghamton. And that's within reason. And that's functional. I have 2 landlords that are a couple, and they are from the First Ward of Binghamton, and they understand what it means to be not only a Binghamton resident, but a good neighbor, and what it means to struggle as a Binghamton resident. And then second, I work in an emergency housing. I work in a shelter where we're at full capacity. It's code blue. It's freezing outside. And that shouldn't be ever really be an issue, but it is an issue. We're in a housing crisis. Good cause eviction is something that is not only needed, it is something that is needed right now. A lot of times I hear from residents that they are evicted because the owner is sold to someone that it wants to make their housing college housing, which is a common tale. Yes, we have a lot of empty houses, but people aren't able to accumulate enough to fight those types of issues. So people are choosing whether to pay their NYSEG or pay their rent. So there's a lot of things that are at play other than there being empty houses. The biggest thing is that we have landlords that are taking opportunities to invest in a separate market that most Binghamton residents do not have the opportunity to partake in, and that is college housing, as well as the university as a market in general. If that makes sense, I don't know. I'm very nervous. But also, being that, if we're seeing needles, if we're seeing things like crime, those are signs of poverty. And that's the reality of Binghamton and the constituents that you're serving. So I think that even though I know there's a lot going on with good cause, we should not wait any longer to pass it. We have a housing crisis, and with that housing crisis, we are seeing all the other crises that come with that. And that's not a new thing, and it's only going to get worse until we are able to protect Binghamton residents, and housing is a priority. So thank you for your time. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Testing. Hi, how's it going? My name's Samuel. I'm a student here in Binghamton, and I've been here since 2019, and I've been like a permanent resident for about like 4 years now. And I would just like to reaffirm support for good cause protections. I think that it's really needed in this community. I was living down by the stadium. I was on Fayette, and I would talk to my neighbors, and I was just seeing abusive and exploitative relationships between them and their landlords time after time, and it was just empty promises and such. Luckily, in the time I was there, none of my neighbors got evicted, but I would hear horror stories about it, about families being put out. And I mean, I don't have much to say. I don't think I'll speak for another 30 seconds, but just want to reaffirm support for what everyone else has said in support of good cause. And I know I want to name a few places it's passed. I know you probably all know this, but just we should follow suit with what the people want. So it's passed New York City, Albany, Beacon, Hudson, Ithaca, Kingston, Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, New Paltz, Nyack, and most recently, it passed in Rochester, in Fishkill, and Catskill, and we should follow suit and pass it in Binghamton. So thank you for your time, and that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Shauna. I'm a resident of the First Ward, and I've lived here for the better part of the last 13 years as a renter, and I own a home now. And I've seen how housing has gotten more expensive for tenants, and also even owning a home is very expensive. So I just want to reiterate my support for legislation for good cause eviction. I recognize with a mortgage, you can predict your housing costs for many years ahead of you. But when you're a tenant, if a landlord is able to raise the rent $500 for the next year because they think that, all of a sudden things are more expensive, and that's reasonable. But I know that the legislation gives room for that if reasonable raises up expenses for maintaining rentals. So I've done a lot of research since the town hall, and I still feel like this is good legislation. I think the tenants of Binghamton deserve stability to be able to plan for their futures. They're a vulnerable class, and I think that Binghamton could be a leader of fair housing here. And considering that they represent a large proportion of our community, I think we're doing a really good service for tenants if we can pass good cause eviction. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has comment they want to make? It's going once. Okay, we're gonna move on to the written comments.
Hello, my name is Olivia Rutherford, and I am a student at Binghamton University where I work as a tour guide and I live on campus during the school year. Outside of the academic year, I live and work in Albany, New York. I'm writing in support of the good cause eviction protection law. Tenants deserve to have the very reasonable protections that the law lists. Thank you for your time and consideration. Dear council member, I own many properties in the city of Binghamton spread out between districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and I myself have lived in the city of Binghamton for about 10 years. You probably don't know me, and that's likely because I am a good landlord. I take care of my properties and I treat my tenants well, like so many other non-headline making mom and pop local landlords do. The city needs more landlords like myself, not fewer. Since the introduction to Good Cause, I have tried reaching out to all council members seeking answers to some basic questions, and I've been mostly ignored. If the council members have studied this legislation the way that they say that they have, then these would be very easy questions to answer, but I fear that the council members don't fully understand this law and its impacts the way they claim to. The way the city operates is a complete joke and an embarrassment to its residents. I can honestly say I'm ashamed to be a resident of the city of Binghamton. I ask that you please carefully consider my below thoughts and opinions on the potentially overlooked impacts of this legislation. Number 1, voting yes to this law is a vote for guaranteed maximum annual rent increases. This law establishes a use it or lose it system for rent increases. Number 2, voting yes to this law is a vote to increase homelessness. Now the tenants can stay forever. Never again will I take a chance on someone who may not deserve it. Number 3, voting yes to this law is a vote to halting all improvements to properties. If it's up to a judge to determine how much the rent can be increased after renovations, then renovations will never occur in the first place. Number 4, voting yes to this law is a vote to punish good landlords who have kept their rents below market. I have many tenants who currently pay substantially below market, oftentimes $500 to $1,000 below market rent. I have asked council members repeatedly to provide answers to situations where rents are extremely low and they have ignored me. Council, I ask you again, what is the maximum annual percentage increase that a landlord can charge if their expenses don't materially change and the current rent is $0 per month because the landlord tried to help someone in need to get on their feet? An 8% increase of $0 is still $0. How about an apartment where the rent is $300, but the market rent is $1,300? Are you telling me the maximum rent increase for this landlord is now $24 a year? Bad landlords already charge as much as the market allows, so why are you punishing only the good landlords? Number 5, voting yes to this law is a vote to increase crime in Binghamton. Drug dealers, criminals, offenders, and more will realize that if they move to Binghamton, they can live forever without risk of eviction. I'm sure all the people who have never been a landlord will say, well, the law still says those people can be evicted. If council passes this legislation as is without changing the law on how nuisance tenants get handled in eviction court, the city will be ruined. Number 6, voting yes to this law is a vote to decrease the value of every property in the city and discourage investment into this community. If this law passes, I will never again purchase another property in the city of Binghamton, guaranteed. Unfortunately, if this law passes, my family and I will move out of Binghamton and start selling our properties here, likely to slumlords, since no good landlord will want to operate in a city where they are the enemy and not a partner. I've tried my best to be both a good person and a good landlord here in Binghamton, but it seems clear and obvious that Binghamton doesn't want people like me. Thank you for your consideration. Good mom and pop local landlord. From Anna Warfield, Dear Binghamton City Council, I'm writing as a resident of Binghamton to express my support for passage of good cause eviction protections in the city of Binghamton. Thank you, Councilmember Hotchkiss, for bringing this legislation forward. As a concerned renter, I speak from experience when I say this legislation is a deeply necessary step. In Binghamton, I have struggled to find safe, reasonably priced housing, and the problem is only getting more extreme. When I started working in Binghamton, I spent a year commuting in because finding safe, reasonably priced housing for a non-student was an absolute nightmare. After a year of searching, I finally found a place. I had an attentive local landlord, one whose operations would not have been impacted by this legislation because he increased rents at a reasonable rate, was responsive, and involved in his properties. My home sold, and I now have an out-of-town landlord who jacked rents up by 50% as soon as she could. Our rent no longer benefits Binghamton's economy. It's being siphoned downstate. Meanwhile, the quality of living here has noticeably degraded. As a tenant, there's a significant power imbalance. When my lease was up for renewal, it became hard to advocate for basic needs around the house, lawn care, common area upkeep, etc., and already established tenant rights, renewal notice period, etc., for fear of being labeled a pest and being faced with a non-renewal. Good cause would have both prevented the outlandish 50% increase in rent and eliminated the fear of non-renewal. This law is not meant for every landlord and tenant relationship, but it's definitely meant for situations exactly like mine, predatory ones that view tenants as a line item on a spreadsheet instead of humans. Passing good cause will expand tenants' rights protections in a meaningful way that doesn't change the landlord's right to eviction proceedings, non-payment, etc. Guaranteed lease renewals and limits on rent increases without clear justification only stand to strengthen this community. This will help residents like myself establish roots in my neighborhood and offer a chance at housing stability. Consider how many of your constituents are tenants faced by a challenging rental climate you yourself have likely not experienced in recent years. Join our neighboring communities in Albany, Ithaca, Kingston, Beacon, Poughkeepsie, and Newburgh in opting in to good cause. In doing so, you will stand as a leader working to solve the housing crisis from multiple angles. Act with urgency and vote yes on this legislation. To whom it may concern, my name is Cody Reed, and I am a resident in Binghamton's 1st District and rental housing owner of 6 units across the 1st, 2nd, and 6th districts in the Binghamton area. After hearing of the proposed good cause eviction proposal, I wanted to voice my concerns. First and foremost, this law will not solve our community's #1 issue of affordable housing. In fact, this will only amplify the issue. We have heard from several local landlords stating that they already hold homes off the market due to fear of acquiring a difficult tenant. That fear will only grow if this law is enacted. Additionally, this will cause increased barriers to entry, increased security deposits, stricter credit checks, and higher rents. These actions will only reduce the available housing in our area. Furthermore, most of these homes are being rented below the state-advised fair market value. If this law was to be enacted, I can promise that many, if not all, small market landlords will continue to increase their rents, something most of us have never done to current tenants. Because of these issues, I fail to see how this law will help our issue of affordable housing. I truly think our council needs to address the need for more housing, not make the current landlord more wary to rent. To understand how much this law will affect our local rental market, we must understand that roughly 60% of our rental units are owned by landlord with less than 10 units per Councilman Hotchkiss. I can speak for all us landlords in this position. We already run a tight bottom line with increased water cost, ever rising taxes and insurance, let alone the repair costs that go along with owning a home built over 100 years ago, as most in our city are. We cannot afford to prolong the eviction process and wait several months for our day in court. Thus far, the council has not done enough to answer our questions and ease these concerns. Though I asked the same question at separate meetings regarding one of the good causes for eviction, I have yet to get an answer, and I have yet to see several other questions answered. The council had asked about this law, had mentioned at this past month's town hall that the large market landlords have yet to be contacted or asked about this law. How will they react? Are we asking for another Anzarut situation? Do we really think it is best to bring this legislation forward with so many questions still unanswered? I implore the council to push forward with affordable housing projects addressing our area's need for mental health support, continue to address the property assessment issues, and focusing on these issues before looking into legislation that does not address the root problem. These concerns strengthen my belief that now is not the time for Binghamton to implement this law. From Jackie Brandell, hello, I live in Binghamton and I wanted to exhibit my support for good cause eviction. Studies have displayed that single mothers, especially those of color, are more likely to experience eviction. Single mothers had 85% of homeless families. Every year, almost 3 million children are threatened with eviction, and children under 5 make up the largest group of people whose households have had an eviction filed against them. Good cause eviction protections are essential to addressing these alarming statistics by requiring landlords to have legitimate reasons for eviction, such as non-payment of rent or lease violations. This policy prevents arbitrary and retaliatory evictions that disproportionately harm vulnerable populations. It ensures housing stability for families, particularly single mothers and their children, creating a foundation for long-term success. Supporting good cause eviction is a step towards reducing homelessness and protecting families, and a commitment to justice and equity in housing. Stable housing is a fundamental human right, and by enacting these protections, we can build a stronger, more compassionate community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you for your time and consideration. Then from the Greater Opportunities Housing Department, dear members of the Binghamton City Council, we are writing to express our opposition to the proposed good cause eviction law that is currently under consideration. While we understand the intention behind this legislation is to protect tenants, we believe it may have unintended consequences that could negatively impact both landlords and low-income renters in our community. Greater Opportunities for Broome and Chenango has been serving the community for over 60 years as a designated community action agency. Our mission is to empower individuals and families by providing holistic support, innovative programs, and comprehensive services that foster personal growth, economic independence, and social inclusion. The populations served by Greater Opportunities include low-income families and individuals throughout the county. The organization is committed to providing safe, affordable housing to individuals and families experiencing homelessness, as well as offering supportive case management to help them achieve self-sufficiency. One of the key concerns with the good cause eviction law is that it may discourage landlords from renting to low-income tenants due to the increased difficulty in managing their properties. This could lead to a reduction in the availability of affordable housing, which is already a significant issue in our community. According to recent data, 59% of Binghamton renters are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their monthly income on housing, and 38% pay more than half of their income. This law could exacerbate these challenges by reducing the incentive for landlords to provide affordable housing options. We believe that a collaborative approach involving both landlords and tenants is essential to creating a sustainable and supportive housing environment. Additionally, the law may place undue burdens on landlords, making it harder for them to manage their properties effectively. This could result in landlords being less willing to invest in property maintenance and improvements, further deteriorating the quality of available housing in the city of Binghamton. It is important to note that the good cause eviction law will not address the immediate needs of families and individuals currently experiencing homelessness. Instead, it may only prolong their stay in homelessness by reducing the availability of affordable housing options. As Greater Opportunities currently operates over 150 housing units and serves low-income individuals and families throughout the city, we understand the urgent need for immediate solutions to homelessness. Implementing this law without considering its impact on the availability of affordable housing could aggravate the challenges faced by those in need. Evictions, especially those based on nuisance reasons, can take anywhere from a few months to up to a year within the city of Binghamton. The prolonged process of a nuisance eviction can be an arduous and costly endeavor for private landlords. On top of the cost of the landlord, nuisance evictions are documented in a tenant's housing record, making it harder for them to secure stable housing and increasing their risk of homelessness. As of this date, Greater Opportunities has not been approached by the City Council to discuss how the good cause eviction law could affect supportive housing service providers within the city of Binghamton. By taking the time to discuss the potential impacts of this law with community landlords, especially those agencies serving individuals and families with limited incomes and/or those experiencing homelessness, we can ensure that the legislation is well-informed and effective. This approach will allow us to develop policies that truly benefit both tenants and landlords without causing unintended negative consequences. Time will permit the City Council to consider alternative solutions that protect tenants' rights without placing undue burdens on both tenants and landlords. By working together, we can develop policies that ensure the availability of affordable housing while also supporting the needs of both landlords and tenants. We urge the City Council not to vote in favor of the good cause eviction law within City of Binghamton. With the current economic climate facing turbulence, enacting such a rigid law at this time may only hurt those individuals and families that it's intended to serve. We need the ability right now to be flexible and pivot to address the needs of our community. The City Council needs to have an open and honest discussion with all parties to make a decision that has the most favorable outcome for all involved, especially keeping in mind the most vulnerable populations in our community who are already struggling with the high cost of living. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. We look forward to the opportunity to discuss this further and work towards a solution that benefits our entire community.
Okay. So I think that concludes our public comment section. We can now move on to first read legislation. First is the introductory local law LL 2501 considered in planning with Councilmember Rathmel.
Thank you. We have local law 25-01, a local law to prohibit eviction without good cause.
Okay. So at this point, there's no motion. You didn't make a motion, right?
No, I can ask for a motion.
Okay. So we could move to, wait, you said you didn't make a motion?
No, I didn't ask for a motion. So,
Okay.
So I'll motion to adopt good cause.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I will make a motion to adopt a local law to prohibit eviction without good cause. Local law 25-01.
Okay, thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second.
No, so we got a motion by Councilmember Rathmel and a second by Councilmember Middleton. Moving on to discussion.
I'm interested in adding some amendments based on the work that was done in Rochester.
Okay.
So
Like to
would
add-
you like me to make those now?
I think it'd be valuable for you to just outline those.
Okay, so up in Rochester, they added 2 definitions to the good cause legislation. They added the definition of nuisance. So their definition is the term nuisance as used in the good cause eviction law for the city of Rochester, in this case, shall mean either a public nuisance or a private nuisance. And they also added a definition for withdraw from the housing rental market, so that they define as the terms withdraw from the housing rental market or removal from the housing rental market shall include a temporary removal or withdrawal from the housing market of a housing accommodation for the purposes of making significant repairs or improvements to a housing accommodation where such removal or withdrawal is evidenced by 1, documentation demonstrating the specific work to be accomplished and the timeline therefore, and 2, an attestation that no rent or analogous revenue will be collected during the period of such work. So that would clarify some of the questions that have been coming to us, particularly about what it means to take off the market. For people that are following other discussions, lead registry, there's other things that are happening. Anyone who's ever dealt with asbestos or lead, you can't actually have tenants living in that property. Those things need to be clarified, that to do these kinds of improvements, we do not want, or I can speak for myself, I do not want deteriorating properties in Binghamton. I want investment in properties. And I'm hopeful that adding these terms to clarify the intent, because this, as it was presented to me in conversations, this matches the intent of the law as it was presented to me, but to make sure that it's clear to landlords and tenants, that intent, and that it's right there in the document. I was not aware, and this is why I'm bringing this now, I was not aware until this past weekend when I was finally able to connect with a Rochester council member. I'd previously talked to council members in other areas. But Rochester is the one that has put forward definitions that this was even a possibility. As it was kind of presented to me initially, it was, opt in, opt out, there's no modification. So that was not something that was on my radar as a possibility. And I think it solves some of the concerns and questions that I've been receiving from landlords. So put it out there
So,
for discussion, or
Okay.
however you want me to handle it. I can make motions now, or.
do you have anything, Councilmember Kavanaugh?
Well, I mean, in light of we have this now limited scope, at least to make a couple of amendments that might help clarify and make the law a little more clear and useful. I think we should we do have a planning committee meeting scheduled. I think we should refer this to planning committee for discussion and see if we can get these amendments into the text of the law, and then reconvene as a body to discuss the amended legislation. I think there's also some questions I think that you had, Mr. President, on the implementation timeline that this might have. So
Yeah.
I think that's another reason to refer this to committee. So I would motion to refer good cause back to committee, the planning committee.
Were you gonna say something?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Is it okay with you if I make this statement? And I think that it will help with clarity
Go ahead.
before you make that.
Right.
Okay, so Yeah, so thank you all for being here and for sharing your thoughts and perspectives on good cause. I think this conversation is really incredibly valuable, and I'm glad that we're having it. I've been working on this issue and this specific legislation for years, trying to get it passed at the state level through every avenue available, as I firmly believe that it's essential step towards our housing stability across the state and right here in Binghamton. I consider it an honor to continue this fight right here at the local level to ensure that these protections are enacted in Binghamton. I firmly believe that housing stability is addressing housing stability is critical to addressing our housing crisis, a conclusion that has been demonstrated throughout many studies that I've reviewed and preparing for this vote. Further displacement of residents will only add to our ongoing crisis, one which this council will continue to address with every tool that we have at our disposal. So I remain committed as ever to passing good cause while ensuring that as many tenants as possible are covered under these protections. That being said, I think it's counterintuitive, but the fastest and most effective way to move forward and make sure that these protections are put into place is to have a holdover and refer this to committee. This will enable us to add amendments like the ones you just heard, but also to remove a 60-day period before the law takes effect, meaning that this small delay enables these protections to take action more quickly. So I'm supporting of a holdover and a referral to the committee for those reasons. It seems counterintuitive, but ultimately we can get to a point where we're enacting protections and honestly a better version of this law in the most effective way possible. So do you want to do a motion to hold over first and then a referral to the committee? Both in one? So do I have a motion to hold over for?
Can I quickly, so
go
just
ahead.
to reiterate, the holdover option would push to, and likely subsequent push to planning committee, would actually make the effective date of good cause eviction law sooner than its current draft form.
That's correct.
I feel like that's important for the community to understand
It's
as well. We've reiterated the urgency and our convictions regarding that for several weeks and months with this law, so I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yep, that's what I was getting at. And I know it's counterintuitive, but if we delay this vote 2 weeks, we can have it come into effect 60 days sooner than it otherwise would. So with that, is there a motion to hold over and refer to committee?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Medavetsky, second by Councilmember Middleton. Any discussion on the holdover?
No.
Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll?
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel,
Aye.
Councilmember Medavetsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dundon is absent, Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 5-0.
The motion passes. So this will be taken up in committee tomorrow, and we'll iron out the amendments. And then we can move forward in passing it voting on it in the next business meeting. Now we can move on to introductory ordinance 025-04, considered in planning with Councilmember Rathmel.
This is ordinance 2504, an ordinance to amend the 2024 CDBG budget to reflect service reductions. I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Rathmel, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion?
The only thing that I would add, so this was discussed in the work session this past Monday. If you do follow along in YouTube, you can go through that video. In the 2024 CDBG budget, HUD calculated program income or program limit percentages that were different from what our city offices calculated, and it resulted in a reduction in service dollars available for those applying for 2024 CDBG funding. So that reduction was then applied universally through a number of the recipients. It's a small reduction overall. And this amendment just matches that budget according to the language.
Thank you. Any
I
further?
just want to
discussion?
reiterate that we also requested that in the future that it actually go back to CDAC. And by we, I mean, I think Councilman Rathmel. And I think that's really important that we keep pushing for better process.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll?
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel.
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 5-0.
Move on to introductory ordinance 025-06, considered in finance with Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Good evening. I'd like to motion to adopt 025-06, an ordinance to amend the 2024 water and sewer budget for over budget items at the year's end.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Kavanaugh, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion?
So again, we went over this at work session. This is a common refrain this year. We have we've had increased expense in electricity and also some in the retirement lines, although relatively small. The major over budget expense is electricity. Fortunately, we also have we've had a good year for interest returns on investments, so it is offset. Unfortunately, it's not a boon, but it's at least offset. So we're offsetting increased electricity and retirement expenses with earnings interest, essentially. That's all.
Any further discussion? So the discussion is limited to council members at this point, but you can send us an email after. Well, I can catch up with you after the meeting and discuss it if you want. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, clerk will take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel.
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 5-0.
Okay, we're going to move to introductory ordinance 025-09, considered in finance with Councilmember Kavanaugh.
I'd like to motion to adopt introductory ordinance 025-09, ordinance to amend the 2024 general fund budget to account for over budget year-end items.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Kavanaugh, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion?
Again, you can refer to the work session video for the specific discussions of these items, but this is cleaning up end of year lines, adjusting things, and these are mostly transfers in the M fund, which is the insurance fund, for some increased expenses, in legal services there. Again, retirement adjustments in the regular funds and a lot of energy costs. So again, mostly being taken care of with our increased earnings interest.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk can take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel.
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dundon is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. It is 5-0.
Move on to introductory resolution R 25-02. This is considered in Public Works. We're gonna kick it to Councilmember Middleton.
I'd like to make a motion for introductory 25-02, resolution authorizing supplemental agreement, number 2 with, New York, NYS DOT for the Main Street corridor.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we got a motion by Councilmember Middleton, second by Councilmember Matavetsky. Is there any discussion? So this one, I think the estimates came back a little bit higher, and then we were able to adjust for some of the pedestrian improvements along Main Street, that project, and the bulk of the increases were going to be covered by
County funds, I think.
the county funds.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's all we're doing with this. Is there any further discussion? Okay, the clerk will take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel. Councilmember Matavetsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dundon is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. It is 5-0.
I think I skipped over introductory ordinance O 25-11, considered in finance with Councilmember Kavanaugh.
There we go. Okay. Right, I'd like to motion to adopt O 24-11, an ordinance to amend.
25.
No, 11.
Oh, it's on the,
25.
it's on the sheet wrong.
Oh, 25.
I'm sorry, an introductory ordinance O 25-11, an ordinance to amend the 25 clerk's office budget to adjust for responsibility adjustments.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Kavanaugh, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion?
It's just,
I don't want to talk about it.
oh, no, you can.
Okay. So, again, refer to the work session video. The clerk's office is transitioning to kind of a new staffing model. We're trying to get back a little bit of the staffing that was lost during COVID. City Council put a new position in the budget, or I'm sorry, restored a position, if you will, in the budget. And that position is posted. We're trying to hire for it. In the meantime, personnel were kind of shifted in anticipation of that new hire, and we haven't gotten there yet. Not going to get there probably till March. So in the meantime, we have a licensing clerk that's kind of doing what she normally does, plus what this new person will be coming in to do, which used to be shared differently. Also, our appointed clerk and deputy clerk are under, I don't know at this point, it was really made to work session. City Council has been putting more of a burden on them, I think, than the past city councils have in recent memory, maybe even distant memory. So as the only quote unquote legislative staff we have, we're making them, we're taking up a lot more time with that. So that leaves a lot less ability to take on the sort of absorb day-to-day clerk-like front-facing activities. So it kind of becomes necessary to continue this responsibility adjustment that we thought would only need to go to the end of the year till we get the new person in place. There are, I think this is a relatively unique situation. It has to do with, again, changing the staffing model in the clerk's office. So I think it bears our consideration, and sort of a unique situation, not something that's going to be hopefully repeated throughout the city without a similar odd situation. There has been some administrative pushback on this, and this actually got held over at the Estimate and Apportionment Committee earlier this afternoon. We're still trying to work out what that means, the implications of that. We could potentially hold this over and discuss it further and pass it later, or we can move on and see how it shakes out. So I will leave that up to all of us to decide as a body. But it's on the agenda, so I'm making the motion.
I don't think that we should hold it over. The clerk and Sherry, you know, everyone downstairs, they really work hard. It's important that, you know, people are doing their job, but more importantly, being paid for it, properly for it. So I don't think that this should be held over. I mean, they can get all of the things sorted out, but this has kind of been something that Sherry's been doing. They have been working understaffed. And, you know, like the clerk said before, if they're not doing it, it's really a liability to the city. More importantly, if everyone's not doing their job properly down there. So, I'm not in favor of holding it over.
I didn't motion to hold it over.
Oh, okay.
To be clear,
Okay, okay.
my motion is the motion to adopt.
Okay,
Just saying if anyone wanted to hold it over,
okay, yeah, okay.
you know.
But that's
Yeah.
just my take on it. I don't think it needs to be held over.
Any further discussion?
I guess
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I understand why this is a good plan for the clerk's office. I think, you know, overall, you know, we voted to put into the budget to create new positions. We understand that there's barriers that are structural, and we're fixing that. I guess in the context of just the clerk's office, I would support this without reservation, but I do think in the larger city space, that it could have consequences that that I'm not comfortable with. But I support everyone who supports this, supporting it. As I said, I do think it is the right move for the clerk's office. And I really hope that my concerns are unfounded. Thank
Do you want to share your concerns, or like on the record or off the record?
I mean, Councilman Kavanaugh's done his best to try and explain this as a unique situation. But I do think that it causes tension in other departments that are not afforded these same opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I think each department head is like responsible for their own, however they run it. So,
And I definitely appreciate that the clerks are doing their job, which is to fight tooth and nail for their employees.
yeah. And
appreciate
if any other department has an issue with it, they can, I mean, you run it how you want to run it. So if you feel like there's something that's missing, just like when we had the meeting on Monday and we were talking about how there isn't a commissioner yet, like if you really want that, you're welcome to do that. If you need help, like this is what we're here for, to work with every single department. So, you know, I don't understand why that would be an issue in the future. If there's an issue that needs to be dealt with, you know, deal with it or ask us how we can help you, because that's what we're here for. So.
And I feel like this is an opportunity to uplift that for every department head within City Hall. It is largely appointments made by the mayor to head up departments, but we are available as resources as well. And we're very comfortable reiterating that.
Correct. Yeah.
So is there any further discussion? Was there a motion to adopt?
Yes.
I did, but I also have to make a motion to amend now.
Okay.
So, since this was written before today, I motion to strike the line, whereas the budget transfer was approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment on January 29, 2025, because it wasn't, it was held over. All right, motion to strike that line.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
So motion by Councilmember Kavanaugh, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion on striking through that portion?
No, but I wanted to say another thing too, back to what we were saying again. The clerk's office is literally the only position, the only thing that is political. Everything else is kind of, whoever. So to me, the clerk's office is the political part of the city. So I just wanted to add that in there. So if anybody had any other reserve, they're the only office that is. So.
Any further discussion on the amendment or the strike through? Okay, seeing none. Is there clerk can take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel.
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Nay.
Councilmember Dunn is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 4-1.
Yay. Sure.
That is 5-0.
Okay, so it's now, we have so now you got a motion to adopt as amended. If we want to pass this. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Middleton and second by Councilmember Rathmel. Is there any discussion on the motion as amended? Okay, seeing none, clerk can take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel.
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Nay.
Councilmember Dunn is absent. Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 4-1.
Motion passes as amended. Now we can move on to introductory resolution R 25-03. This is considered in planning with Councilmember Rathmel.
Resolution 25-03 is a resolution to enter into an agreement for various service agencies for CDBG to add some context and
Do
various.
you want to make a motion first?
Oh,
Motion.
sure. And to read it specifically, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an amended agreement with CDBG service agencies to account for a deficit in funding for FY50 programs.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rathmel, second by Councilmember Matavetsky. Can move on to discussion.
Okay, and this adds, thank you, just a little bit of clarity. It's related to the earlier ordinance 2504, those service reductions that were identified. So those reductions resulted in a funding deficit that had to be accounted for the recipients of last year's community development block grant funding. So it is just weighing out those line items within the budget. But again, I think what I want to make sure we're representing the process to account for that budget line item, the service reductions, the resulting funding deficit was those decisions in these cases were made by Mayor Cram, whereas typically the Community Development Advisory Council is responsible for any changes or allocation recommendations when it comes to service funding and capital funding for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, and 2 other HUD funding buckets. So our very clear request that we made on Monday during the work session is that if there are any reductions, any deficits that need to be accounted for in the future, that those decisions regarding what services and agencies are impacted go to the Community Development Advisory Council rather than being solely decided by the mayor to bring forward.
And I want to reiterate what Councilman Kavanaugh said at the work session relating to, like, when you're cutting funding yes, it sounds fair when you do it across the board, but they were unable to answer the question of like, does this funding cut actually make it so something can't happen, right? So sometimes even just a little bit of money being cut makes it so the whole project is not going to be viable. So being able to answer that and the expertise of CDAC and been building the relationships with the groups, it's a better strategy than just across the board cuts.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk can take the roll.
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel,
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn is absent, Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 5-0.
Our last one is introductory resolution R 25-04, which is considered in planning with Councilmember Rathmel.
Okay, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept $165,000 from NYSERDA, which stands for New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, their Clean Energy Communities program for energy efficiency improvements.
I'll second.
Hang
Should
on.
make a motion.
You need to
I
make a
don't know
motion.
that I
gotta
said
make
a
a
motion
motion.
to,
Yeah,
yeah.
make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll
Sure.
second it.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Rathmel, second by Councilmember Middleton. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. I think I can just add that this is to make energy improvements for city-owned buildings to make them more efficient. I appreciate that we just like passed our climate action plan and we're already making moves to move forward with it. So this grant is going to help with our energy efficiency within the city-owned buildings, ultimately making them more weather resistant and efficient and helping with our climate goals.
And it relates to the Siemens presentation that we saw, I think, towards the end of the year.
I would just like to highlight Dr. Burling from the planning department that really pulled a lot of the data and did all of the kind of legwork, grunt work to put this application together and get this in to get this funding. It's there's a lot of little hoops and things you have to jump through to meet all these kind of program definitions and stuff to free up the money. It's a lot of rubrics and such, and so it's a valuable contribution to the city. Just having that thing that she undertook. So, thank you, Dr. Burling.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll?
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Councilmember Rathmel,
Aye.
Councilmember Matavetsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn is absent, Council President Pro Tem Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 5-0.
Okay, that concludes our first read legislation, and now we can move on to communications from council. Councilmember Middleton, do you want to start out?
Yeah, sure. Last week we had our neighborhood meeting. We didn't really have a lot of turnout. We have some things coming up. February, I think it's 17th. I might be wrong. Ask the clerk. 19th. Thank you. See, I was gonna ask the clerks. February 19th, we're having a meeting regarding the noise ordinance. So please come out. It's at 6 o'clock at the Unitarian Church. And we do have our neighborhood meeting at the end of the month of February. I just want to say, I know that with this new administration that's just been sworn in, I know a lot of people are down and out regarding it. I just want to tell everybody to keep the faith. Just continue to do what you are doing, even though to you it might be a small thing, to someone else it might be big. So I just wanted to encourage everyone who may be down and out regarding the changes with this new administration. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kavanaugh, do you have any communications? Okay. Councilmember Rathmel.
I do want to represent a collective statement from council about good cause. Before I do that, though, for anyone in the 6th district, primarily on South Side East, there are two small community member groups that are starting to meet within the next few weeks. First, to talk about Webster Street Park in anticipation during these cold months of what we can do and what we can plan for the summer. So if you're at all interested in that, please reach out. We'd love to have more folks from the block right there in our conversations. And then there's also a just group of neighbors getting together to talk about alternatives to the Weiss closure. That's been moving forward at a city level in discussion, but this is really just those of us on South Side East, kind of block by block, talking about how can we support each other in providing alternatives, whether it's ride sharing, transportation sign up, or grassroots focus. So everything will still continue with city conversations, all the good work that has been, attempted in terms of finding an alternative. But those conversations are starting next week as well. So really targeting Southside East folks, whether it's email, Facebook, phone call, please feel free to reach out. And then I know we're probably all ready to go, but I do just want to share. This statement was released yesterday to media in anticipation of tonight's meeting. We are deeply grateful to everyone who participated in our town hall earlier this month and for the many who sent comments and questions or joined us at neighborhood association meetings for further conversation. It remains the firm belief of this council that local government should be transparent and participatory. We will continue to host opportunities for community members most affected by legislation being considered in City Hall to share their support or express their concerns. Regarding good cause eviction law, we also appreciate the legislators in Rochester, Ithaca, Albany, and elsewhere who are willing to offer insight into the impact of good cause in their cities and make recommendations regarding its implementation. With 12 municipalities across the state having already expanded tenant protections in this way, we look forward to collaborating and learning from our collective experience. To directly address inquiries consistently brought up in community conversations, we want to be clear that good cause eviction law does not remove the right of landlords to reobtain possession of their properties or to increase rent within a reasonable margin. The rights of landlords to consider eviction for non-payment, property damage, or other lease violations remain unaffected, while protections that prohibit arbitrary eviction or exorbitant rate hikes are ensured. This council's decision to move good cause eviction law forward is a reflection of our conviction that the current state of what has become a housing crisis for too many Binghamton residents warrants urgent action. Study after study conducted since 2015 within the city has found that chronic displacement has contributed to increases in student mobility, household and neighborhood instability, and homelessness. Municipal leadership has been forming committees and commissions and task forces to discuss local housing inequities for over a decade, all of which included landlords, realtors, developers, local tenants, service agencies, and legal service representatives. Yet more than 1,200 individuals and over 700 families with children faced homelessness in Broome County last year. Pressing pause or putting a pin in this conversation is the kind of inaction that got us here. It will not get us out. This council also fully acknowledges that reducing displacement is only one piece of an effective approach. Aggressively addressing the deficits in available homes for residents who have been left behind while student and luxury housing development soared remains our long-term focus. In addition to prevention, we will continue to introduce policies to preserve existing stock and produce more deeply affordable housing. Thank you for trusting us to prioritize expanding opportunities for every Binghamton resident to have a safe, stable place to call home.
Councilmember Medvetsky.
All right. Yes. So thank you everyone who's been engaging in the process, especially people from my district who identified themselves as from my district, be they tenants or landlords that reached out to me. It was very educational for me. Yeah, on your list of groups reached out to, I also spoke with I think Kingston was on your list, but I was also spent quite a bit of time talking with New Paltz because they also have student and high poverty rates and a lot of similarities to our group, our city. Some thank yous. Thank you to the Broome County Special Investigations Unit for your work regarding the bodega on Mitchell. Thank you to DPW. I've gotten some big thumbs up for your handling of the snow up on the hill. I've been told that the handling's been the best this year and ages. Really, thank you for making some attention, especially after some of the bigger accidents that we've been having up there. January 30th, 5:30 p.m., Southern Tier Zoological Society annual meeting at Doubletree by Hilton. Contact the zoo office 607-724-5461. So 607-724-5461 for information. I intend to be there February 7th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The Discovery Center has its free First Friday art show. So it's a free admission night. So come and there's art as well. Some of you may have heard me on the radio Monday on Bob Joseph talking about the blue bag issue in Southside East. I got a call from a constituent after that had an interesting idea, which was to see if Meals on Wheels would sell blue bags. Unfortunately, that's not possible, but the Office of Aging did respond. I was trying to pull up the email. It unfortunately wouldn't connect to give the actual details, but they were saying that they have shoppers and that, if there's residents in Southside East that, qualify or anywhere in the city that we should be able to work something out. So if you are a senior and having issues getting your blue bags, feel free to reach out to me, especially if you're a Southsider. I'll try and put you in touch. And the more I understand the scope of the problem, the more I can understand who to call in and who to bring in and what size of a solution to try and hammer it with. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. And then I guess in conclusion, I just want to emphasize that I think it's pretty clear that I'm committed to passing good cause and making sure those protections are enacted in Binghamton as soon as possible. But I also want to emphasize that I want to continue education both on the tenant and landlord front. I think we've opened the door to a lot of different conversations, and there are areas that have been eye-opening, but ultimately, these protections are only going to be effective if tenants know their rights. So we have to commit as a city and as a community to continue to do that education, but also offer that same education and outreach to landlords so that they know what their responsibilities are and how they can adjust their business practice if they need to accommodate for a new law. So I'm committed to doing that. I'm not just thinking about this as passing it and just forgetting about it and then letting people fend for themselves. I think I see this as an opportunity to continue relations with both tenants and landlords throughout the city because there's far more needs and this isn't going to completely alleviate all of our housing problems. So we need to continue to work together. So again, thank you all for your engagement and feedback. That's all I have for tonight, and I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
The motion. Oh.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion by Councilmember Middleton and second by Councilmember Rathmel. All in favor?